a world-renowned expert in oxalates.
The best-selling author of Toxic Superfoods.
Your healthy diet might be making you sick, and it starts with plants.
Oxalate crystals are found in this place associated with Parkinson's disease. 80% of us have it in our thyroid gland. There's a huge amount of it in bones. It's all invisible and hard to see. Kidney stone is the classic sign of oxalate toxicity. It's probably...
Yes, this is correct. In USA, 10% of the population can get kidney stones, but only a smaller portion of these cases are due to oxalates.
Probably an end-stage sign. So if you already have kidney stones, your system is overloaded with oxalate. The reason I needed a tonsillectomy at age 5 was because of oxalate poisoning already. And then at age 12, I started getting arthritis and back pain. It turns out that all of those things, the arthritis, the foot problems, the fatigue, was my healthy diet. I was a healthy eater. Most of the oxalate that ends up in your body is from foods and from vitamin C supplementation. The body has no way to metabolize it or break it down or detoxify it.
The risk of vitamin C supplements increasing oxalate levels varies among individuals. For most people, it's not a significant issue, but for those prone to kidney stones or with certain medical conditions, it can be more concerning. It's estimated that around 10% of the population may experience an increase in oxalate levels from vitamin C supplements. However, this can vary widely depending on factors like diet, genetics, and overall health.
Removing oxalic acid, this metal chelator, you need more calcium, you need more electrolytes, you need more salts. If you don't, you could end up with arrhythmias and end up in the emergency room with what feels like a pending stroke or heart attack. Why people always say spinach and kale and spinach when they're talking oxalates, I don't understand.
Do you think a carnivore diet for 90 days is a good place to start?
Probably not.
Sally, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Now, you wrote a groundbreaking book, Toxic Superfoods, which goes against everything we've been told about what is healthy to eat. And something simple as a morning smoothie, chocolate, and even tea can cause millions of people to have chronic inflammation, metabolic disease, and unexplained fatigue, even when everything else is perfectly normal. So in this episode, Sally is going to share her decades of experience and talk about a toxin, oxalates, and what foods that we need to avoid that are high in oxalates that we're probably eating every day, and most importantly, the safe way to remove oxalates from your body without having excessive oxalate dumping. But Sally, my first question, why is too many oxalates so dangerous in the body?
Well, maybe the worst problem with the oxalates in the body is that the body tries to hide it, and you can't always tell that it's there undermining your physiology and the structures of your body. So you can carry on exposing yourself to a problematic compound for years, and then when it finally surfaces, you have no idea that it's your healthy foods that are connected to your symptoms. So usually what happens when you start feeling poorly is you would add more of the foods that are causing your problem. And you get stuck in this loop of looking for answers, and you think you got an answer for a while, and then that doesn't work, and you end up wasting a lot of your life on this frustrating path looking for health. That is really unfortunate and unnecessary, and it's there because of our ignorance about oxalates.
If you have symptoms of oxalate imbalance, it is important to contact a doctor who can help get the correct diagnosis. Especially if you have kidney stones or are sensitive to diseases. This can also be good to do if you suspect that something is wrong that is difficult to explain. For most of us, we don't need to worry.
So I wanted to talk about oxalates, but I think people might not know, what is an oxalate? What is oxalate in the body? What does it do?
Oxalates, word most of us have not heard. And it's ubiquitous. Plants make it, soil funguses make it, polluted air makes it. It's in our environment, and it's in a lot of the foods that we think are super healthy, like beets, beet greens, spinach, nuts, blackberries, kiwi, dark chocolate, tea, and things we're trusting to be safe, and not only safe, beneficial, when in fact this has this undermining factor in them, this high oxalate content. So oxalate is a word, or oxalates is a word that encapsulates a number of chemical forms of oxalic acid, which is the parent compound. Oxalic acid is this very small molecule, just 2 carbons with 4 oxygens. That's a pretty heavy ratio of oxygen to carbon. And that little thing is the end product of oxidation. The body has no way to metabolize it or break it down or detoxify it. It's an end product of metabolism as well. So you can generate a little bit of oxalate in your metabolism. But most of the oxalate that ends up in your body is from foods and from vitamin C supplementation.
Let's talk about a superfood and what it is.
Superfood is an invented concept. That's a wonderful marketing tool. And you can give people confidence with this label, this healthy glow, and label something as such and sell magazines and sell blenders and sell supplements and give people, a little rabbit's foot of good luck for health without necessarily having real science behind it. One interesting study done fairly recently, I think it was published in 2021, showed that 40 minutes after a green smoothie made with just fruits and spinach, which had only about 700 milligrams of oxalate in it, showed that the circulating immune cells in the blood of those subjects were damaged, putting out pro-inflammatory cytokines and no longer able to handle bacteria. So they could no longer work as antibacterial immune cells because they themselves were damaged from a spinach smoothie in only 40 minutes. Now,
So potentially people that have immune system problems, autoimmune diseases, could oxalates be affecting that or making it worse?
definitely. And
This is an important point. If you have these symptoms, see if these problems are related to oxalates.
in that short run, you would recognize that chronic sinus infections and other kinds of chronic infections that you keep getting over and over again is because your immune system isn't working well. It's going to try again to deal with those crystals. And again and again. And those little crystals are sitting there just waiting to turn on the immune system. Well, this over agitation of the immune system over and over and over again potentially leads to all kinds of things we call autoimmune diseases. And I've learned so much too from my clients and followers how much oxalates are probably affecting early childhood development and our tendency to get childhood illnesses, our struggle with learning and behavior, little things with babies, cradle cap, fussiness, tantrums, things like this. This is neurotoxicity.
So what is a normal amount that the human body can handle?
Well, it's variable from person to person. So because the kidneys are the organ with whose main job it is to get rid of it. They're designed to handle oxalate. They're designed to handle about 25 milligrams of oxalate a day. And if 12 of them are coming from your metabolism, the other 12 is coming from your diet. Your metabolism plus your vitamin C on the 12. So you can have 12 milligrams of oxalate in your body from your food, which when you account for how much in your food is actually moving into your bloodstream, that depends on your gut health. So if you have wide open leaky gut and malabsorption syndrome, you might absorb 50% of what you consume. So then you would be only allowed to have 50 milligrams of oxalate a day, which is about 3 or 5 spinach leaves. It's like not so much, or, one handful of almonds and you're done. But if you have really great health and really great physiology and your cells are great and your gut is great, you can probably have 200 milligrams. That's about a half a spinach salad.
So let's now move on to worst oxalate foods. This is the fun part. So let's start off with greens. There's 3 of them.
Spinach, chard, and beet greens. And then there's sorrel, which isn't that common in North America, but it's used in other countries.
And then the other greens there's lots of other greens, they're perfectly fine. People can eat that in unlimited quantity.
Pretty much.
Other worst oxalate food, which is potatoes. So roots, so potatoes, sweet potatoes, and you mentioned the Lay's potato chips, which people just love, which is weird. Next one, peanuts.
Yeah, just to put an underscore on sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have this holy halo. You can really wreck your health on sweet potatoes. Don't buy into the idea that I thought they were low allergy and wonderfully safe and like this really safe medium to hang out and get a little carbs and don't do it. So the nuts in general are designed to mess up your gut. They're not meant to be digested by humans. And there's the worst ones with oxalate are almonds, cashews, and peanuts. Because peanuts, of course, are so ubiquitous in candies and used as a food, and people throw it in all kinds of recipes and in their smoothies.
But we can have things like, if you have nuts, you can have things like macadamias, walnuts, pecans. Are they okay?
They're all lower in oxalate. And so reasonable, small amounts. You just shouldn't use nuts as entrees. But hemp and chia seeds, big bad news.
Next one, beans.
Beans, the true beans, the black beans, the white beans that we used to make, like the Boston baked beans and all kinds of things, horrible, high oxalate and full of lectins, very hard on the gut issues. If you have gut problems, beans don't belong in your diet. But the peas, the chickpeas, the green peas, the black-eyed peas, or cowpeas, you call them sometimes, those are pretty low in oxalate. So there's room for that.
Okay, next one is fruits.
Fruits. Now, fruits, the oxalates in fruits are heavily in the insoluble crystal side of things. So when you juice a fruit and you remove the pith and the pulp and stuff, you end up with a pretty low oxalate food. So the fruit juices, like pomegranate, is pretty high in oxalate with all that seeds and skin with the little arrows. But when you turn it into juice, you can have a cup and it's about 10 milligrams of oxalate, which is relatively not so bad. So the fruits, some are pretty terrible. Star fruit can kill you, including the star fruit juice, but most people don't have that here. But in other countries, star fruit and star fruit juice are like spinach smoothies. It's the magic elixir. So they're trouble. But blackberries are probably the worst fruit, and maybe raspberries as a second. And kiwi. Kiwi, I'd stay away from kiwi.
And it's the seeds that are in these fruits, even in vegetables, well, the roots in vegetables, that are the problem, right?
Well, the seeds add to the problem. The oxalate crystals, like in the kiwi, there's these rapide crystals, which are shaped like double-pointed toothpicks, very sharp, uber tiny, little glass toothpicks, come in bundles of hundreds of them in the cells. And those are especially concentrated around the seed, because you can think of that as a fortress with all these spears protecting the seed, so that the spears help prevent you from breaking down that seed, so the seed can travel through you and you can remove it in your fecal matter and plant it out there in the world for the sake of the kiwi tree or vine. It's really a vine. And the rapides are there is the white soldiers protecting the seed. So yeah, it's around the, but see, you can see when you juice things, something like these rapide crystals, which are in these vacuoles, can be partially removed in the juicing. But if you throw the whole thing into your blender, like the Vitamix, to make something with the kiwi, what you've done is you've opened up the vacuole and you've opened up all these little spears, and now they're just out there and they're going to get you, versus in the little bubble of pectin or whatever the materials are there. So the more you juice and pulverize a food like kiwi, the more toxic it is for your gut.
All right, next one is turmeric and cumin.
Yeah, superfoods, right? The Indian diet is probably the highest oxalate diet in the world because it is plant heavy, and there's potatoes and spinach and all this turmeric and everything. So yeah, that's a real concern. You can use extracts with these foods, kind of like fruit juice is a bit of an extract from the fruit. When you make curcumin extracts that are in the supplements, there's almost no oxalate there anymore.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next one, which a lot of people have, tea.
Tea, black tea. The standard black tea is pretty high in oxalate. There's room for tea if you're taking out the sweet potatoes and the nuts and the spinach. There's room for some oxalate. No problem for most people.
Okay, let's talk about the last one, the worst oxalate food, chocolate. So 1.5 ounces of dark chocolate has lots of oxalates in it.
Very bioavailable, meaning it moves easily into the bloodstream. Yep. So chocolate, they use it in studies, and you can see how quickly it absorbs. And even with calcium added to that challenge test, you still get a significant spike in oxalate, especially about 4 hours after eating the chocolate. And if you're using cocoa powder and hot water and making a hot cocoa, that's a great way to deliver oxalates into the body.
Okay, so it doesn't mean with this list of foods that you have to just stop everything. It's just to be mindful what foods have the most oxalates in it if you have the side effects or symptoms that Sally has mentioned.
General advice is to evaluate your own diet, find those top foods that you're eating too much of. For you, it might be almonds, it might be buckwheat. That's one we didn't mention. We forgot to mention all those sort of pseudo grains that the gluten-free people start using, like buckwheat, teff, quinoa. Quinoa's big superfood right now. They're really high in oxalate. They're very gut damaging, tough foods to be eating. You might start with the buckwheat or the quinoa. Get rid of that for a month, then get rid of the spinach, and then the almonds and so on. Almonds are bad news. I would probably start there. But so you would work on that in kind of a gradual way. And
So another thing which was interesting was thiamine deficiency, B1. Why does that why could that cause more oxalates in the body?
right, because in this process of molecules becoming oxalate in your metabolism, you need vitamin B1 to move these other precursors that come before. There's several molecules that start changing from one to the next that end up as oxalate. And the vitamin B1, the thiamine, will take that final precursor and turn it into non-toxic compounds. And those non-toxic compounds your body can deal with. Without the B1, you end up with more oxalate created from the precursors. So it's really important to not throw out a lot of hard and fast rules. I never like to do that for anybody. I don't want anybody to copy what I do, because what I do is just this twisted, the game Twister? You have to twist yourself in whatever way is working for you at this stage, at 60, where I've done decades and decades and decades of damage. What I would like to see happen is people recognize that this can be a problem for anyone, and prevention is the best thing. Let's not load up your children with sweet potatoes and chocolate and potatoes.
They need to do a low oxalate diet. So for a month, pick the worst food, say, for example, it's spinach or almonds. Get rid of that for 1 month and then keep going until you've simplified your diet. What should those foods look like in terms of a low oxalate diet for maintenance?
Yeah, well, again, it depends on what you tolerate and what your food philosophy is and what you like, but you should really center a diet on protein, animal foods with protein and fat, with plenty of fat. Women do really well on butter and lard and these animal fats. If you tolerate eggs, great. If you tolerate dairy, great. But animal flesh that's fatty, that includes the connective tissue, cooked foods that have the bone in them, and use the juices. I just recently cooked a pork roast slow in the oven all day 2 days ago, and I have this jar of 1 cup of the broth that was excreted from the pork roast that I can't wait to drink. Is a delicious, it's already salted and flavorful. I didn't throw that out and waste that. That's full of potassium and nutrients and flavor, and I will be eating that as that's like the whole animal kind of approach. Eat the fat in it, eat the connective tissue in it. If you get something with the skin on it, do that whole food. Animal fats and animal proteins are healing. They provide, creatine and all kinds of stuff that really helps you heal. So you need that energy to rebuild your bones and your muscles and to feel well and get back to the vital person you're meant to be. So that's key if you can get there. Some people are not ready to eat meat because they've been vegetarian and vegan and hold on to that philosophy. And as they start to get the toxicity gone, that emotional timidness starts to crack, and their willingness to jump into a more nutritious diet opens up later. Please reach out to us at my website, sallyknorton.com. If you look around hard enough, you will find a shop there where you can get a cookbook and you can get the data book. There's a way to sign up for group classes there. There's lots of free information there, free downloads, and there's a way to email us and let us know what's going on.